Hi there, welcome to another episode of 411 Pop Culture. Here at 411 Pop Culture, we're going to be listing down our favorite 80s movies. Joining me is Danielle Almendra, and we're going to be doing 4 episodes, various genres, counting down our favorite 80s movies. We sort of bonded together on 80s movies, so we figured it would be a good way to kind of cement our relationship while also showing you and sharing with you our favorite 80s movies. So stay tuned to the next episode because your picks might still be out there. Alright, on tonight's episode, we're going to be counting down our list of favorite romantic comedies, horror, and biopic picks. Danielle, do you want to start us off? What is your list of top 5 romantic comedies?
Thank you, Justin. My list of romantic comedies from the 80s consists of the following top 5 movies: Overboard, Look Who's Talking, The Princess Bride, Seems Like Old Times, and Mannequin.
Very nice. And my list is Romancing the Stone, Coming to America, Moonstruck, Splash, and Overboard. So Danielle, talk about your list. Why did those make your list?
Well, these 5 movies for me are movies that I've loved throughout my whole life. At some point in my life, since the 80s, obviously that's when you and I were born.
For sure.
It's very
nostalgic.
They're movies that I can go back and watch at different periods of my life, and I enjoyed them throughout my life at different ages and everything like that. Overboard, absolutely hilarious. Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn, fantastic. Mannequin, love it. I mean, there's a mannequin coming to life. I mean, it's just like the craziest thing. Like, you wouldn't have even expected something like that.
It's a very 80s concept, too, that you could kind of get some, like, and it works. It really does work, at least when you take it in the context of 1980s movies. And Overboard, too, that's obviously on my list. I love the sort of dynamic between Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn.
Absolutely.
I think, that it shows on the screen and it connects to the audience, and it's a funny concept. With we've quoted the movie 1,000 times, from Eat Your Checkers to Andrew, but it's good choices.
I almost said to wait.
Right. I mean, Goldie Hawn really takes that character to a perfect level, and Kurt Russell, even though he was a Hollywood child actor, he does have that sort of everyman quality about him.
Absolutely.
So, and for me, Romancing the Stone is definitely one of my favorite all-time movies. 80s movies, it's the similar concept where the dynamic between Kathleen Turner and Michael Douglas with Danny DeVito thrown in there. It's got action. It's a clever story. The script was written by a waitress, and Michael Douglas kind of saw it, and it was like an overnight sensation. A great fun story. I really Coming to America too, because it's more of a comedy, but it's sort of it's based on the idea of a prince finding his princess, and I think that's a fun story too, but in a more urban setting to kind of bring that to life. And Splash will always be good. Tom Hanks, The Mermaid Story. So
oh yeah, absolutely. Very good. Look Who's Talking, for sure.
Oh,
Princess Bride,
for sure. These are classic movies.
Look Who's Talking was definitely something that you'd never seen before either. I like that it's a real 80s original, like they have...
Amy Heckerling too, she wanted to do Clueless, and she's got a real sense of dialogue. So the fact that it's a baby talking, the dialogue is so essential to that kind of story, and I think Amy Heckerling really nails it. But it's also the romance between Kirstie Alley and John Travolta. They obviously have chemistry. I mean, I think that's what's important in any of these romantic comedies, is that your two leads have to have a certain degree of chemistry. So, and then you also mentioned Seems Like Old Times. That again, in Goldie Hawn and Chevy Chase. Yeah. And Charles Grodin's character in there, it's a good, because he plays sort of the straight man to Chevy Chase's goofball sort of character. And of course, again, it's a different version of Goldie Hawn being like sort of the higher upper class. She's not so much snobbish, but she definitely plays those characters well.
Very proper.
Correct.
And she's a lawyer.
And you can easily see why she would be with Charles Grodin as she would with Chevy Chase. So. And now we're going to list down our list of favorite horror movies. Now, for my list of horror movies, and Danielle, this is a very hard pick for me because I very much love horror movies, but I narrowed it down. I have honorable mentions, but the 5 80s that I'm going to go with are Fright Night, Halloween 2, Friday the 13th, Part 4, the final chapter, Phenomena, also known as Creepers, and The Stepfather. And Danielle, what are your picks?
My top 5 horror picks of the 1980s are as follows: The Lost Boys, Killer Clowns from Outer Space, The Shining, Flowers in the Attic, Nightmare on Elm Street.
And I would like to also throw out some of my honorable mentions. 80s, like I said, 80s horror is like the most beloved decade of horror, in my opinion. Also, Flowers in the Attic was also my honorable mention. Cujo is my favorite movie of all time, and I think you're all starting to realize that. Also, Child's Play and Scream for Help. But talking about yours, Nightmare on Elm Street, obviously. What about it did you love about Nightmare on Elm Street? And it could be anything, folks. We're talking about actors, the movie itself, soundtrack. There's so many reasons to love these movies, and we're picking them because of something essential for us that makes it good, even though it might be one small part of the film.
Well, I'll have to say, I like Johnny Depp, so when you wanted me to watch that, I absolutely was like, all right, I'll give it a shot, know, whatever. But, it takes something where, everybody loves to go to sleep. You like to enjoy, that's your peaceful time, and it just turns it into this nightmare, where you don't want to sleep, and that really is scary. People go to sleep to escape, fears and anxieties and all that kind of stuff, but it's the reverse, and I thought
it's only a matter of time that you have to fall asleep,
it was so cool. I love it.
Yeah, it's a fantastical idea, but, how do you fight somebody in your dreams, and I think, what do we do, because it's based on, there's 2 parts of fact. Wes Craven, had a memory of his childhood where he was looking out a window and some creepy guy was standing there with a fedora on and kind of looked up at him and knew that he was scaring him. But it also was a real thing that was happening from these, in Vietnam, there were refugees that came over here, and these people were dying in their sleep, and it's I'm dumbing down the story a lot, but basically, this did happen. And this one kid even, they found him sleeping with his coffee pot like Nancy, and, the family kept trying to get him to go to sleep like her parents did, and then finally he did, and they were relieved, but then he died in his sleep, and they, it's what do we do as human beings that we could create such a horrible monster that could come back to haunt us in our dreams? In the film, it's manifested through the fact of the parents came in and killed him because he was a child molester.
Right.
And so then they came back, but they sort of created this monster in and of themselves by killing him throughout outside the legal way of doing it. But yeah, no. What else did you mention on yours?
The Lost Boys.
Lost Boys is classic.
Yes.
I don't think we would have the vampire movies that we have today, like Twilight and all those, because there was a sort of dangerous, sexy quality to it. I mentioned Fright Night, and I think the sort of comedy Fright Night of the darkness of Lost Boys really did change the landscape of where vampires sort of became. Now they're everywhere, and
And I think we definitely made some comical elements out of that movie, but it really is dark.
Sure. Well, yeah, I know there's definitely the Corey, two Corey's comedy element, but the darkness of it, these kids, they are sort of symbolic of these the throwaway kids, and Sam and what's the brother's name? Sam and David.
Michael.
Or is it Michael? Yeah, sorry. Sam and Michael, they're a product of a broken home, and luckily they have their mom, Diane Weist's character.
Right.
But with, these other kids, they're only a step away from being like them. The vampire part of it gets pretty intense and scary, whereas Fright Night is sort of like Tom Holland bringing gothic horror to modern audiences.
Yeah.
Lost Boys isn't so much of a tongue-in-cheek humor. It's very much straight-laced. Yeah. So vampire movies are always good, though. I did like later movies like Twilight and stuff, but they were terrifying back in the day. All right, but I do really want to talk about Phenomena, also known as Creepers. Dario Argento is an Italian horror filmmaker, and at one point he was just as revered as Wes Craven in the U.S., John Carpenter, Tobe Hooper. And Phenomena is, it follows Jennifer Connelly, who was just before she did Labyrinth.
Right.
And, she has this telepathic bond with insects, which help her to find the serial killer that's now coming after her. And it's got a great dreamlike quality, sort of like, the concept of Nightmare on Elm Street, but a different, more of a less literal interpretation. And then The Stepfather is fantastic.
I did like that one too.
Yeah, it's a very simple movie, simple premise. You know, we all have those fears. As a kid from a broken home or a divorced family, if you will, you know, this stranger is coming into your life and you have no idea who it is. You know, your mom or dad might be seeing all roses and stuff, but from a child's perspective, and then to have this, you know, it's a very simple tale that comes across really well, in my opinion.
Let's not forget about Killer Clowns, though.
Killer Clowns from Outer Space,
because
classic cult movie.
I don't really think of it as a horror, but it is. Like, these killer clowns come down and, like, basically ransack this town with popcorn and cotton candy.
Well, it scared the heck out of me when I was a kid. The one kind when they put the people in the
cocoon.
And then the one kind of puts a straw up and sucks the blood out of it.
But it takes your like two favorite things, you know, like popcorn and cotton candy. Like, kids love popcorn, they love cotton candy, you know. And they make this terrifying thing. Yeah. And then when the cop makes that guy that puppet, hands down,
that's actually a really creepy scene.
Creepiest scenes.
No, I agree with that.
Horror. Yeah, right there. You got to check it out.
In a movie of comedy, you know, the movie's comedic, and that scene may have even been intended to be so, but the way that it came off, it's genuinely terrifying. Oh, yeah, it is terrifying. They do it really well. No, I definitely agree. Some of my favorite horror picks.
Flowers in the Attic?
And Flowers in the Attic is definitely one of our, you know, we bonded on Flowers in the Attic. It's almost campy, but unlike the later remakes from Lifetime, I feel like Jeffrey Bloom really captured the sort of gothic horror atmosphere, whereas the remakes from Lifetime were definitely more in your face with the like incest angle and the spicier elements of the story. Jeffrey Bloom's Flowers in the Attic really captured the gothic fairy tale.
That's what I really pictured it, because I did see the movie before I read the book.
I read the book first.
I saw the movie first, so that when I read that book, that room is what I pictured, and it just like.
See, I was afraid to watch the movie because I waited till my mom left the house. Cause I had just read the book, and I was like, oh well, I don't want to watch this. I was 12. I'm like, I don't want to see this with my mom. Waiting for this sex scene. I mistakenly
watched it, and then after I mistakenly watched it, you know, my aunt was like, here's the book, read it. And then it became this whole other thing that we don't need to get into. But it's great. You should check it out if you haven't.
Absolutely. And last on our list for this episode are biopics. Danielle, what's your list?
My top 5 biopics are Mommy Dearest, Great Balls of Fire, La Bamba, Coal Miner's Daughter, and Mask.
And my list is also Coal Miner's Daughter, Silkwood, Cry in the Wild, also Mommy Dearest, and Mask. Now, for me, Mask, the whole story is very moving and inspiring, the Rocky Dennis story, but it shares performance in that movie at the end when it's in the background movie is Grateful Dead's Ripple, while Cher is falling apart, throwing things everywhere, and it's just an amazing performance for a simple movie. But also we love Coal Miner's Daughter, that's Sissy Spacek, Tommy Lee Jones, the story of Loretta Lynn. It's a must-see movie, I think, especially of the 80s, and she won the Oscar for it, for Best Actress.
Yeah, it's such a good movie.
Growling like an old grizzly bear.
Right. Definitely Great Balls of Fire.
I know you love that one.
This almost slipped by my list. I was really surprised because that's a movie that I used to watch over and over again. And you kind of think of it, I mean, it can come across as like a love story, but then like when you think of the context of it, you're like, no, not a love story. It should be really
they're about cousins. He's really young, yeah.
And she's young, but you know, Jerry Lee Lewis, you know, obviously, you know, was a sensation at that time.
Yeah, he was going to replace Elvis.
Yeah.
It was
the music in that is just fantastic.
Yeah, it was
absolutely.
Dennis
Quaid's great.
No matter what you think about him as a person, and he is kind of despicable. His music, his art speaks for itself, and I mean some of the great art is like that. Yeah. And Silkwood and Cry in the Wild were both picks for me, both starring Meryl Streep. Cry in the Wild, we all know, is the dingo ate your baby, but you know it is really a horrifying tale of a mother who found, you know, they went camping, the baby girl was taken out of a tent by a dingo and killed. And this mother went on trial and she was imprisoned just because people didn't like her. Like they didn't like that she wasn't crying enough, and it's a really important warning to how the media, the interpretations of what they have, how it can become a public, you know, sort of judgment. And that's what she sort of was judged on. And then it came out, they did find the evidence that the baby had been killed by a dingo and she was released. Horrifying. Silkwood is also another true life story starring Meryl Streep about Karen Silkwood, who She was the union leader, found out that this nuclear plant that she worked at wasn't up to code, and she was sort of in herself a character of lesser moral values, or at least from society's viewpoint. Yeah. And so they kind of said, she was in a car accident, but the way the car was off, it looked like she had been run off the road and killed because she was about to go on trial and reveal all this stuff. But they kind of were like, well, she was a drug addict, alcoholic, also starring Cher as well, now that I remember. And but it's one of those stories that, when you watch the movie, it comes off really genuinely sad, and at first terrifying, and then you're like, oh, this is such a waste, and really sad. And Mommy Dearest, of course, is one of our favorites. We quote it daily around this house. We were having trouble about putting it in drama, comedy, but biopic, it's based on a book, and whether or not you believe the story, I'm sure, most things in life, there's two sides to every story, and the truth somewhere lies in the middle. But definitely Faye Dunaway and Diana Scarwood's interpretation is over the top, but in all the great, entertaining, wonderful ways that films are over the top.
La Bamba.
And La Bamba, yeah.
Yeah. I really love that movie. I didn't even know, 50s music at that time that I had watched that movie. So I just, it made me love that type of music and really get into all that. And Lou Diamond Phillips is just great in that movie, too. I think he does a great job.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Absolutely.
I don't think he does any of the real singing, but overall it's still a great movie.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah. Right, well, what are some of your favorite biopics, horror films, or romantic comedies? Is there, I'm sure we missed some stuff. We're just real people, 411 Pop Culture is just real people talking about really everything. These are some of our favorite picks from the 80s that we think are essential classics, whether they were Oscar nominated, or cult classics, or something you've never heard of. But, if you agree with us, disagree with us, totally cool. Let us know in the comments below. But please like, comment, or subscribe. But let us know, what are some of your favorite movies, and do you love the movies that we love? Thanks for watching, everybody. All right, stop. Okay, stop.
Let me just get it out now.